Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Reconvene Sessions. This is our first UKI Reconvene session of the year, so we're very excited to see you all here in this virtual room. And like you, we can't wait to hear more from our creators today. There's lots coming up. My name is Amy Martin. I'm the International Content Manager here at Eventbrite, and I'm coming to you from Cork in Ireland this morning. I thought it'd be good to recap on the purpose of this series. So this event series was created to help empower and inform organisers just like yourselves and help you to continue to learn what's new and what's next in our industry. So as we see trends emerge across the industry, we dive deeper and we create events like this so that we can find out from those who are actively running and attending events across the industry what's going on. So this morning's Reconvene session will be a mix of live and recorded experiences. I actually sat down with our panelists, Katie of Wineknow, Bobby from the Gin and Rum Festival, and Gaia of Cocktails and Conversations 2 weeks ago to talk all things attendee personas, so who their typical attendee is, how they identified them, and most importantly, how they reach them. We're going to air this recording shortly, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. And all three panelists will then join me afterwards for a live Q&A. So as I said, there's a lot coming up this morning. Buckle up. We love this mixed event format because it allows our panelists to join us in the live chat and answer your questions in real time. So please feel free to engage with Gaia, Katie and Bobby in the live chat as the following conversation unfolds. And a huge thank you again for joining us today, and welcome to the live chat, Katie, Gaia and Bobby. So in order to participate in the chat and to ask our panelists questions, just use the chat box to the right-hand side of your screen. For those who are logged in, please say hi to each other, introduce yourself to our panelists, let us know where you're joining from and what you're looking forward to learning from today's session. That's really important for us to know. And additionally, please feel free to connect with each other as well. As well as our panelists, you'll see that we have some members from our partnerships team, Graham and Kira, in the live chat with us today. So feel free to ask them questions too and set up a separate call offline if you want to explore the product in a bit more detail. This chat will be monitored and harassment of any kind will not be tolerated. All sessions content will be posted with closed captions after the event on our YouTube channel. So very quick overview of today's topic before we get stuck in. Today's topic is one that bubbles up every time we speak with event creators. Who's your target audience and how do you reach them? And the idea for this particular event came about after we published our 2023 event trends report. For the first time in the history of this annual report, we actually surveyed event attendees as well as event organisers. And amongst many questions, we asked those attendees how they identify as an audience. For example, do they consider themselves introverts or extroverts? How essential are events to their weekly, monthly, annual expenditure? Who do they like going to events with? And how far are they willing to travel? Lots more questions. They were kind of the key ones. And when we analysed this data, 7 distinctive attendee personas rose to the surface. And these are outlined in detail in our attendee persona workbook, which will be dropped into the chat later. We got really excited. We started thinking about how the typical event attendee has evolved in recent years and what that means to those who are running events now. And what better way to find out more about all of this than to speak with the panel of active event organisers. And so the idea for this event came to life. So today's panel, who range from a fledgling event organiser to someone who's been running events for over 10 years, have all worked really hard to understand and reach their target audience. And the hope is that by the end of this event, you will have a better idea of who you want to target and how to reach them too. So our panelists today are Gaia Beck, founder of Cocktails and Conversations. This is an event company that hosts dating and networking events across London. With over 10 years experience and over 500 events under her belt, Gaia has a wealth of knowledge in event marketing and sponsorship. And a fun fact about Gaia, at least 30 couples who met at Cocktails and Conversations events have actually gone on to get married, which I think is really amazing. Then we have Katie McPhee, who's the founder of Wineknow. This is a non-profit event series to make wine education more inclusive and featuring a diverse range of wine educators. This side hustle project for Katie is in the early stages of audience building and offers a unique look at tapping into diverse audiences and new ways to experience wine tasting. And finally, we've got Bobby Nanua, who's the founder of the Gin and Rum Festival. Bobby founded the festival in 2018, and since then it's become the largest UK touring festival dedicated to gin and rum. So Bobby and his team are passionate about being current and meeting the evolving interests of their audiences in cities all across the UK. So enough from me, let's get started. Please feel free to engage with the live chat as this panel interview unfolds, and I will see you all back here afterwards. Hi guys, thanks so much for being here today. We've a lot to get through, so let's get started. I was hoping to start with a very general question. I'd like to ask you all if you could tell us a bit about your events so that our audience knows everything about them before we get really into things. Mainly how you got started. So, is this a side hustle, for example, or a full-time gig? How has it grown or changed since you first started this event? And everything basically that we should know about your events. So, Bobby, I might start with you for this one, please.
Okay, great. So yeah, my name's Bobby. I run the Gin and Rum Festival, which is a large-scale touring spirits festival around the UK. We do roughly around about 25 to 30 events a year, all over the country, right away from the top of Scotland down to bottom of England and Wales as well. So we basically have 80 different gins, 80 different rums. People buy tickets for our events to come and taste these different gins and rums. But we also invite local and national distillers to come along as well to showcase their products. And also, there's an educational side to it as well, so people can learn about the different gins and rums as well. We have it's quite a fun event, so it's quite music orientated. So we have a live DJ, we have a live band. So it's not only just a gin and rum tasting; it is a social gathering as well. So that's a bit about the Gin and Rum Festival. Um, I run various different businesses, but this is a full time gig. It's we run an events company. So in the past, we used to do a lot of events for other people and facilitate those events. But what we found was we weren't really in control of those events. So we were looking for something that we could basically be in control of ourselves, and that's where the Gin and Rum Festival came
Thanks, Mel. Gaia, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I own a company called Cocktails and Conversations. The majority of the events which we host once a week are singles events for professional singles in London. And then on top of those ones, we have fashion shows, London Fashion Week, and large-scale balls, which are generally aimed at singles. But as our clientele become attached, they still want to come. So we make sure we do put on events that welcome people in relationships as well as singles. They're generally in central London or Chelsea or Knightsbridge, and they're sort of tailored to mid to high range people who want to go to the more luxurious end of venues, and want to experience the venues that they maybe wouldn't be able to attend, or maybe they don't have a social circle to attend with. So on the one hand, there is the idea of meeting somebody, but really we don't want someone to come once and never come again. So it's more of forming a community with like-minded people, making friendships that will maybe last a lifetime, but certainly you'll want to come, over a number of events and really just change your situation from online dating to face-to-face dating.
Great, thank you. Katie, do you want to wrap it up?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Katie, and I run an event called Wineknow. And Wineknow was conceived because we just felt that there was the opportunity to create a place where people could come and learn about wine in a more inclusive and, I guess, diverse arena. So we like to showcase speakers who come from underrepresented communities, and we just want to bring people into the wine education space that don't necessarily feel they have a place in other wine education events. And the idea came about because me and my friends were just really bored of going to events where we were the youngest people in the room by 20 years, and it just ended up being quite dry and really inaccessible for anyone that didn't have a degree in viticulture. So we just wanted to create something that was fun, more inclusive, and it's also coincided with the fact that live events have always been a part of the mix for me. So I'm a tech marketing consultant by day, but actually the last couple of years since COVID, I've not really been doing any live events, and I really missed it, really missed bringing people together, really missed building a community. And so creating Wineknow was also a way to, I guess, start building community again, having that live events fix as part of my mix, but also putting something out there that I feel that is really needed in the community. And I would say the feedback so far has really sort of validated the fact that people are up for this. People also want to learn about wine in an informal space, and that there's a market there.
That's great. And just to clarify, when we put together this panel, we actually didn't realize that everyone was coming from a slightly alcoholic background. It was only about 2 weeks ago that this tweaked with us. So even though you all actually run very different types of events, obviously there is a common denominator. But I think coming into the summer of, food and drink festivals, this is a really nice way to actually set the tone. So actually, Katie, I might stick with you for this one, because I think for the purposes of this event, we really want to dig into attendee personas. We want to find out all about who the kind of ideal attendee persona is for all of your events, and just generally how attendee personas in the industry are changing, and probably changing in line with like what's happening in society, what's happening in the world. But to get us started on that, I'd love to know that when yourself and your friends started out with Wineknow, did you have a specific attendee in mind? And from the very start, how did you go about getting to know them, like finding out where they hang out online? Things like even how much they'd be willing to pay for a ticket, for example, how frequently they would like to attend an event, what would mean the most to them on the day of an event. If you could just tell us about how you identified them and how you got to know them, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so there were a couple of personas that we had in mind. So first of all, we recognised that us ourselves are maybe a few years actually older than the people that we felt that this would be most beneficial to. So my friend's background is that she's been in senior roles in the city for the last couple of decades, but actually her reason for wanting to bring Wineknow to life was that she's actually been socially excluded from events for not having had a public school background. She wasn't allowed to pick the wines at certain events, for example. And so actually experiencing the social exclusion around wine, it really motivated her to go out, learn about wine, so that she could have those sorts of conversations. So her motivation was to really make sure that anyone in those junior roles, in professional backgrounds where you needed that knowledge of wine, could come to a forum like Wineknow, get that wine education, and just feel confident to talk about wine in professional settings. And so that young city persona was definitely one of the personas. And Sarah had a lot of people in her teams that she could talk to and get feedback from about where they would go and the sort of ticket pricing and those kind of elements. The other persona is someone that I work with, a colleague. Let's call her Jessie. But I actually just brainstormed a lot with her. She's super passionate about wine. She would choose to have a night in with a nice bottle of wine instead of going out to the pub. And so again, I road test. She's like 10 years younger than me, so exactly in the target market. But I was able to road test a lot of ideas about pricing, branding, past her, because knowing that she's much closer to that target audience. I think the stumbling block we had is that neither of the people that we were testing this with were particularly active on social. So we haven't necessarily had what I would say the winning social strategy yet. It's something that we're still digging into. We've been doing a bit of testing, and that's been like the one missing piece of the puzzle for us. But for things like the concept, the positioning, the pricing, we definitely had solid personas to support with that.
Great. You kind of had a ready-made focus group with Sarah's friends then and her contacts, which is a great place to start. Exactly. Bobby, how about you? When you started out, what was the dream attendee for you? Who were you really kind of creating this event for? Bobby, I actually can't hear you. I don't know, or you may be on mute or.
Sorry about that. Is that better?
No worries.
So yeah, when we started off with our gin festivals, we were a little bit late to the scene in regard to the gin world. So there was a lot of people actually doing what we're doing now already with gin festivals, but they were either doing not a very good job or very small, low-key events. So what I really wanted to do was bring something to the table, the kind of event that I would go to, or I would like to attend. And obviously, being middle age, I don't go out every Saturday night no more. But I've run bars and pubs before in the past. But I still want to get together with a group of friends on a sort of monthly basis and do something that's a bit cool. And that's really what the Gin and Rum Festival was really designed for. We've had to change a little bit over the years to accommodate everybody, but we've made sort of changes to the event. But really, it was for the sort of middle age people who didn't want to go out on a Saturday night to go through all the hassle of going out to their local city, to a nightclub or anything like that, and just do something a bit different, basically.
Great. Gaia, I feel like your attendee persona might be the opposite. These are people who wanted to go out and wanted to meet.
No, actually, they're quite similar.
Okay.
In the sense that I was previously a nightclub promoter. And as I got older and I noticed the clientele around me got older, they still wanted a night out, but they had aged out of nightclubs.
Yeah.
So it left a gap in the market. To these nightclubs were empty until 11, 12. And then as you get older, you want to go out a bit earlier. So I asked the nightclubs to open up for me earlier, and I can still use their exclusive spaces and, have their wonderful sort of service, because they're the type of clubs that would be quite difficult to get into. But the people who are 30 plus can still come and enjoy and have a nightclub experience. So I had to kind of dig into the persona of, well, who is this person who has aged out of nightclubs but still wants to go? And they're not all nightclubs. They could be a 5-star hotel lounge or a members club that's particularly popular. And it was, I aimed it around a woman, because I feel like if women are there, men will come. You don't need to market single events too hard to men. So I think one of the key things which I found were important to women was generally from their feedback, and that was their safety. So I make sure the venues are very close to a station, and the journey from the station to the venue is an easy one and a safe one. And also we have hosts, around who can kind of just keep watch and keep check, because people are drinking and they're around strangers. So we really ensure that the safety comes first, and then we look at other things that they ask for. What did they complain about? And every complaint was something we could dig deeper into the persona and say, okay, let's solve the problems that these people are giving us the feedback on. And that gave me a better idea of the persona. So as I said, she was a woman in her mid-30s, high level in her career. She really liked going to nice places. She didn't always have friends to go out with. Maybe they'd married or left the country. So she wanted a social circle. She wanted to feel safe. She wanted to feel that she was seen and understood, and wasn't made to feel that she was too old to be there, or what just didn't fit the demographic of a young club. So we made sure that all those concerns were seen and addressed, and and she felt comfortable about being in that kind of social event.
Yeah. And do you think that that person is still attending your events? Like, has that original attendee persona changed in any way?
No, it hasn't. I mean, we've refined it so it can be, so we make it better for her. But generally, there are different age groups that like to come. So we put more and more events on so we can cater for all the different age groups. But that fundamental idea of connection, fun, and safety is always paramount to our persona, that we look to serve them.
Yeah. We're seeing this really strongly actually at the moment in the research that we're doing. So we ran an event trend report at the start of this year where we surveyed event organisers and event attendees, and we asked attendees about how events make them feel. So across the UK and Ireland, 60% of UK attendee respondents and 56% of Irish respondents said that events reduce their feelings of isolation and loneliness. So it kind of ties in with a lot of what you guys have said, and make them feel happy, connected, and energized. And I think that definitely happens on the day of an event, right? So when someone gets to an event, they definitely feel part of something. But as event creators, how do you go about fostering that sense of community before the event, after event, between events? Like, what are the steps that you take to make sure that people feel less alone, even when they're not at the event?
I mean, my guess, that's a real big concern of theirs. I mean, feeling nervous in the build up to the event, they send a lot of emails. So I have a lot of resources on my website with FAQs, but also Facebook and Instagram are constantly talking to our members. So I'd say everyone that comes to our events is either on our Facebook or Instagram, and it's constantly, we're bantering in the stories, we're keeping them engaged so that they do feel like, and I put a lot of my pictures up, they feel like they know me and they know the host, so that they feel even before they get there that they're part of the community.
Okay, great. And Bobby, at your festivals, are you doing anything post-event to like gather people? Like Gaia, you mentioned that like you kind of knew what the complaints were. Like, are you guys running post-event surveys? Like Bobby, do you communicate with your attendees afterwards and find out how you can evolve the event and make it better for them?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of our customers are obviously previous attendees anyway, so they know the format of how the event works. But we get a lot of engagement through our social media, through Instagram and Facebook for all the events beforehand. So we have a whole build up via our social media and also our email databases as well, and giving people that sort of drip feed of information to the build up of the event. And then we get also a lot of engagement off the back of that as well, with a lot of questions, and also a lot of educational questions regarding the products that are going to be at the event as well. So yeah, we get a wide variety of a build up, and then after the event as well. Obviously, that's really important for us to get the feedback on how the event was and how we can make it better as well for the future.
Yeah. Katie, when you and I spoke a few weeks ago, kind of pre this session, we talked about kind of promotional tactics. And obviously Wineknow is on its 6th iteration, is it? You just hosted your 6th event?
We're on our 4th. Yeah,
Fourth.
It's every other month as well. So
Lovely. So when we're talking about like promotional tactics, obviously this is a side hustle for you at the moment. What are you doing? Like, where are you seeing success in your kind of promotional tactics at the moment with an event that is new?
yeah, so definitely still testing the water. In terms of channels, Instagram seems to have been quite good in terms of building the community, not necessarily so much in terms of the last touch ticket sale. I think the word has been getting out through Prince of Peckham. So I think like selecting a venue with a shared ethos. Prince of Peckham is, I think, one of London's only Black-owned venues. And they've been really helpful in sort of marketing us to the community, which I think has inherently built trust between us, what we're trying to do, and the sort of atmosphere people can expect when they come to the event. Email marketing, we've been doing a little bit of as well, but I think again, where we're still sort of building out that audience, we haven't really quite dedicated the time or seen the feedback yet to show that that's been a particularly successful channel. In terms of other partners, so Black young professionals attended the last event and have featured this upcoming event and the last event in the newsletter as well. So identifying organizations and partners with shared, I guess, like ethoses is definitely where we've seen some traction. But definitely still figuring out like what the right mix is about building community in between events as well, where it is a side hustle. I think finding the time to do it. I mean, TikTok would be quite an obvious choice in terms of the targeting for the social platform, but it's just really finding the time to do the testing where it's not like one of my native social platforms, for example. So still working on it, in short, but partners have been massively helpful.
Yeah, sounds like I think it's a great strategy, particularly when you're starting out, to kind of create those partnerships and collaborations and then like access those audiences through them. Gaia, how about you? Have you used TikTok for your events? Because
I do use TikTok. I don't have much success on TikTok. I get the odd person that says, "Oh, you're the girl from TikTok," but it's not my main platform. I don't get much traffic from it. I'd say I'd probably put the most effort into Instagram. I've got quite a big following on LinkedIn, and Facebook is actually where I get the most referrals from, based on just the analytics. So they all work together, plus the mail out, plus my Eventbrite mail out, plus the Eventbrite boost campaigns. So it's really the marketing is nonstop. I mean, the marketing for the weekly event is a full-time job. I'd say I'm more of a marketer than I am an event organizer. The events more or less take care of themselves because the venues kind of run them once the people are inside. So yeah, it's ensuring that I talk to my clientele and they say, "Oh, I always go to Facebook to see what event's next," or I go to, and someone else will go to my website. Someone else waits for the newsletter. So I'm aware that you can't let really any of the channels slip when you need to complete the sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bobby, for you, so obviously I think Facebook ads has been a bit of a success story for you guys, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, so when you launch an event, like, are you seeing ticket sales quite early on then if you're activating those platforms kind of early in the ticket selling process?
Yeah, so we've sort of changed our strategy this year. So previously we would probably launch the event and target the ticket sales sort of like 12 to 16 weeks before the event. Whereas what we've done this year is we've actually launched all of our events over a year before the event. So, and that's had a really massive success for us because we've managed to just basically bank all of our tickets early on, which gives us the time to really focus on how do we make our event better. So we're not having to worry about ticket sales. So most of our events are either sold out or very close to being sold out this year already, even though they're going to be happening at the back end of the year. So it just gives the rest of the team time to focus and how do we make our events better for our attendees.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of a dream situation as
Yeah.
an event organizer, surely, to know
I
that
mean, we are lucky because we
Yeah.
have already got the audience.
Mhm.
So we've been doing it a long time. We've done probably near enough 200 of these. So we've already got the audience. So we can really concentrate on our email database. We can all really concentrate on our previous attendees, which, you know, fortunately we can, whereas others need to build up, like Katie, whose events are new. But I'm sure over the next year or so, you'll be able to build up that database and it'll be a lot easier. So, but for us to be able to do that, we've got to make sure that it's an event that people want to come back to as well, because there's no point trying to attract previous attendees if you didn't deliver a good event. So
Exactly. And knowing what they kind of expect on the day. If the situation was different, and this is kind of a question for all three of you, if you hadn't sold out and it was like, 48 hours, 24 hours before the day of the event, nightmare situation, like, what are those last minute marketing tactics that you would use? Like, have you had experience of this, in the early days, at the moment? Like, would love some intel on last minute marketing hacks.
Yeah, I mean, I can have events, especially if it's something like a speed dating event, and I might not have enough of one gender, and that can be very stressful. It's actually why I stopped doing wine tasting, because I found only women wanted to come. And it can be, again, it can be difficult when you don't have a balanced gender. So I would do competitions and giveaways. I never cheapen the ticket price, but I will I'll run a competition. I'll make it seem like a really exciting thing to win, and I'll just give loads away. I say you're going to win 2, but I'll probably give 10 away and just get the numbers up. So that's usually, but I can, sometimes it's something simple that you've done wrong. So I might have embedded the wrong link. And then I realized that, oh damn, that's why the tickets haven't sold, or the link's broken, or my website, the page has come down, I haven't noticed. So sometimes if my tickets aren't selling, it's to look and make sure, are people able to buy them, or has something gone wrong in the process somewhere?
Interesting. Katie, how about you? What
Yeah.
have you had to pull any last minute strings yet?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting and admirable hearing Bobby talking about having sold out through to the back end of the year. I mean, on our last event, I think on the first couple we had sold most of the events, most of the tickets within 2 weeks prior to the start of the event, and we were it looked, definitely, we knew it was past break even, we knew it was all going to be a full house. But on this last event where we had Easter weekend right in the middle, it was just clear that people just weren't buying. We were doing exactly the same things. We were getting the impressions on the pages, and I think people just were not buying because we just had that 4-day weekend right in the middle. And sure enough, after the Easter weekend, in the last sort of 6 days leading up to the event, we saw the event pretty much sell out. But it was just doing a little bit of activity on every channel. So it was our own broadcast groups. It was getting the Prince of Peckham to promote it on their channels. We had, I think the Black Young Professional group sent out another reminder, but it was just a little sprinkling of everything, really. Definitely curious to hear about how others have managed to get around social ads, because I found that mine have been blocked because of having wine in the name of the event. But the mitigation that we thought is like, okay, is it about break even? Yes. in which case, worst case scenario, we'll just adjust the room layout and actually change the format of the event. So that's not exactly a last minute ticket sales hack, but more
It's a hack.
let's just actually like change what the event is going to look and feel like. We haven't got a full house, but fortunately everyone did buy the tickets and we had a full house.
You.
So
Anyone?
I mean, I had a lot of trouble with social ads because singles ads are blocked on social channels as well. And I had to write to Facebook to get that lifted, and even still, some of the mediators would still block it. And there's also a lot of restrictions around it being perceived as adult content and so on. But if I'm blocked on promoting the actual event, I can always do a promotion just to drive audience to my Instagram page. So I just do a follow me campaign, and then I can post whatever I like on the Instagram page. So that's usually a good workaround if they don't like your content.
Good to know. Thank you.
Good one. And how do you, so Bobby, for example, with your kind of, you know, different tactics that you're using early on when you launch your tickets, how are you measuring success? Like, can you easily see which platforms are performing for you, and can you make changes if you need to?
Yeah. So basically, we have over the years tried different methods with our advertising. So we've outsourced it to different agencies, but ultimately we've always come back to the same thing, and we've done it in house ourselves, which allows us to daily monitor what our success is. So we basically have a meeting every morning looking at all the ticket sales for all the events, what's working, what's not working, which ad set's working, which promotion's working. So we're constantly on top of all our campaigns, and we really have to, because we're spending so much money on marketing. Because you can imagine, if we've got 25, 30 cities all at the same time that we're trying to advertise, trying to get 3,000-4,000 ticket sales in each city is a lot of money which is going out. So we have to stay on top of it all the time ourselves. But being in-house allows us to make those instant changes. So like the guys have said, that there is silly mistakes that you can make where you might have inputted something wrong on your ad. For example, I can't remember the city, but we did something a few years ago where we were advertising an event, and one of our customers emailed us from Australia, and it was a city in the UK which is also in Australia as well, which was just a very, very simple mistake, but obviously it's having an impact on our ticket sales. So being in house allows us to pivot and to change instantly and look at different tactics. So yeah, that's what we do.
Great. I think I'd love to talk about messaging, because I think like everything we're talking about so far is, you know, about reach and promotion and kind of understanding like the person that you're ultimately promoting your event to. But, and Gaia, this is something you and I spoke about a couple of weeks ago. Like, it's so important to hit the right tone of voice, to like use the right language. And I think language is so obviously effective at creating a world for people, you know, that they want to become part of. Guy, I'd love to hear more about your comms, really, because I think that you have done an amazing job over the years of kind of creating a world really for your attendees through the language that you're using in your communications.
Yes, so I try to keep it very consistent, and I imagine that my attendees are someone who would enjoy programs like Bridgerton, and that's how they want to be communicated with. So I never get lost in internet slang and this type of language. So there's certain keywords I'll always use in my marketing. The color scheme, again, it was picked very specifically to be gender neutral, but also make sure it was in line with high-end members clubs. So I did a lot of research around the language high-end members clubs use and how they position, because I guess they've got teams and big bank accounts to do the research on this. So it's easy for me to say, okay, this is the right type of language, and I stick to that. So when I have hired people to do my social media, but in-house, I can give them quite firm style guidelines and copy this for the events, because I know, as well as using the right keywords, which are always about connection, which are always using the word eligible instead of the word single, and people don't necessarily want to be pigeonholed, you know. So it's about making them feel good about their single status. as opposed to making it feel like something to be ashamed of. So
Mhm.
it's always very positive, very elegant, but they also really want a breakdown of what's going to happen. So I understand the people who probably come to these events are not the most social naturally, or they probably have somewhere to go. So those people want a breakdown of what the format of the evening is in detail. And so I make sure that's in the messaging. That's not something I would need, but I understand that my attendees want that. They want it to be very explained of what's going to happen. So I bear in mind who they are, the language that they like to hear in the TV shows or podcasts that they probably listen to, and I emulate that so they feel comfortable and at home when I'm communicating with them.
And it is amazing how language can make people, I think, feel a certain way. Bobby and Katie, in your experience, kind of, with creating essentially content marketing, I suppose, and kind of, how you are creating copy for posts, are you thinking about the attendee persona as you're writing? Like, are you kind of connected with how they would like to be spoken to?
Yeah. Go on, Katie, you go first.
So I was just going to say thank you. That I think the challenge that I had initially was in the positioning of the event overall. It was about how to draw out the fact that it was distinctive. And so I definitely had a few different runs at sort of the positioning, the description of the event before, because I think we're trained to think that we should be talking about things positively, for example. But the final copy that we have when we talk about our event is love wine and want to know more, but put off by the uptight and non-inclusive vibes about some wine events. And so it's actually positioning what we're not, because having road tested this with a few people, it just actually seemed that landed, and I really saw conversion to tickets from page views. It really went up once we just made a few small changes, because actually setting out how you're distinctive, I think as the event creator, you think that's the finished article, but then getting some feedback from your target persona, it actually winds up being something a little bit different.
It's really interesting. Bobby, would you have something to?
Yeah, so with our events, we operate on different sessions. So we tend to do like a Friday night, Saturday day, and a Saturday evening. And what we found was that we have different personas attending different sessions. So we have to actually market each individual session to a different target audience as well. So for example, on a Friday and a Saturday night, you have more of a younger party goer atmosphere. Whereas on a Saturday afternoon, you would have more of a gin taster or a rum taster who wants to try different stuff, but also be educated as well.
Mhm.
So our marketing has to be targeted to each individual session to make sure that we're getting the right audience and the right sessions as well. So, and then we also have to tailor the actual event feel per session as well. So the Saturday afternoon's a lot more, background music as opposed to a Saturday night where everybody's trying to just have a good time and the dance floor's full. So we have to be really careful in how the tone of voice for each individual audience.
Yeah, it's like an added layer of difficulty to your comms, but obviously it really works because you're obviously nailing the three different personas really well.
We're trying to not target one audience. We're trying to suit our events to everybody. So,
yeah.
Which is achievable.
Yes, well, definitely. I think you've proven that for sure. That actually segues perfectly to my last question for you guys. We, as I mentioned, ran this event Trends report last year, and amongst many different trends that came out, one of the big ones was attendee personas, which of course led to this whole event. And some really interesting personas rose to the surface, and these were really kind of surfaced by our attendee respondents and our creator respondents. So it's a really holistic kind of overview of what the industry feels are the kind of strong attendees at the moment. So, for example, we have essentialists, who are people, when asked, would you, prefer a material gift or a ticket, unanimously said ticket. We have comfort zoners, people who really want to go out, but want to do it locally, want to do it with people that they know, don't necessarily go to events to meet new people. We have introverts, who are defined as people who do want to socialize, but maybe prefer to do it virtually, prefer to do it in a place they feel very safe. And again, similar to comfort zoners, want to do it with people they know. And we've got connection seekers. So those are people who will show up to an event and they're often very active on social, and they want to actually meet other people who they may know through social media at those events, and generally just kind of forge new relationships. So this is the question that I think I put to all of you beforehand because I wanted you to have time to think about it. But if you had to give your audience a name right now, it could change. We know that audiences evolve over time, but at the moment, who is your attendee persona, would you say? Gaia, I'll go to you first.
I'd say mine are introverted connection seekers. So they really do want to make a connection, but they do need someone to slightly hold their hand through the process.
Lovely. I love that. Katie, what about you?
I think mine would be essentialist connection seekers. I think they're definitely seeking a unique experience. We have about 20% of our attendees come alone. So they're people that are sociable and up for meeting new people as well. And I think genuinely interested in connecting with the wider community that are in the room around wine, and just with the hunger to learn.
That's so interesting that 20% come alone. I wonder, will that change over time as people kind of start bringing friends? We'll
touch make friends with each other, and then
exactly. Yeah, we must talk again in 6 months' time. And Bobby, how about you? How would you describe your attendee persona?
I would say essentialist comfort zoners.
Okay.
We have large groups of people that come and are there to have a good time, and enjoy themselves.
It's amazing how I think all three of you mixed them up, and actually often connected to that feel quite opposing. So I think that's given me anyway a lot of food for thought, and hopefully a lot of advice, a lot of tips, a lot of just a lot of experience to share with our audience in the live event on May 11th. So thank you all so much for your time today, and I'm really excited for the live event. Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed that. Took lots of notes. There was lots happening in the chat, which was great to see. So hopefully everyone got the answers they needed, but I will bring the panelists back on shortly anyway for a quick chat. So before I do that though, I just wanted to take an opportunity to recap on some key takeaways. So these were key takeaways that we pulled out of the conversation when we kind of looked back over it. I think big one for me was understanding more than just who your attendee persona is and finding out what they actually want from an event. Many of the panelists mentioned various different kind of tailored nuances to their events that definitely have come off the back of getting to know that attendee persona. So I think, really delivering that on the day came across loud and clear. And keeping the comms language consistent and matching audience expectations, I thought was really interesting. I know Gaia in particular kind of honed in on that, and I think that really kind of, amplifies how well you know your attendees, knowing exactly what they expect in the language that you're using. And also listening to attendee feedback. I think we talk about this all the time, and it's just so important to keep doing. So making changes based on what they want guarantees that returning audience, which, in Bobby's experience, guarantees those really great ticket sales, a good way out. And up-to-date FAQs as well on sites are a great way to connect with your audiences between events. I thought that was really interesting because I think people sometimes forget to update those FAQs. And I think it's good to make sure that you're incorporating current attendee feedback and questions and concerns and challenges into those FAQs to make sure that your attendees are feeling reassured, I think, between and in the lead up to events. So they were our key takeaways. There are many, many more, I'm sure. But now I'd like to welcome Katie, Gaia, and Bobby back on screen for just a few final questions and a chat. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey. Thanks so much again for being here live today. I hope you enjoyed that. I didn't get to watch all the questions coming in, but I think there was quite a bit of activity in the chat. So I hope kind of the attendees really got the advice and experience that they were looking for today. So for you guys, did any particular topics kind of stand out as being really interesting, or even, I guess topics that you yourself are thinking of digging into a little bit more?
I definitely want to dig more into the Facebook advertising. So I'd be keen to have a whole session hearing more about that.
Noted. Great. And I think I really liked that question that came up kind of towards the end around the best days for ticket sales. And Gaia, I think your response is really interesting because I think it actually shows how even little trends like that can help you to get to know your attendee persona more, like what days of the week they actually are more likely to buy. I thought that was really interesting. Katie, I think you had an interesting answer for that one as well. Was it evenings and weekends are kind of where you see most of your ticket sales?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the seasonality factor as well. So is that still the case that those certain days perform well, even when we have like a series of bank holidays like we've just had, or going into summer? I think that's what I'm curious to see, whether that'll still be the case.
Yeah, yeah. I think monitoring those trends closely is actually something that, you know, a lot of event organizers probably aren't doing enough. And I think it is so important because it will really help you determine when you go on sale and when you're kind of expecting to see those peaks. And from a marketing point of view, it allows you to know when you need to really amplify your spend, for example, on ads, because you know that they're the times where, you know, you need to kind of up the ante a bit. Bobby, any kind of key takeaways for you from just the questions that were rolling in? I know you'd quite a few directed at you, so you were pretty busy typing. Anything in
Yeah,
particular stand out for you?
I think one of the key messages that you mentioned about the FAQs, that's something certainly we as a team probably haven't looked at. So I think that was a very good point there, because especially new people attending our festivals, that's something that they would definitely go to. So I think that's a really good, important point there.
Yeah, I love that one too. I think that's something that we're actually going to hopefully create a bit of content off the back of, actually, just kind of even just giving advice on how frequently to kind of address them, and how many times, you know, a year you should be reaching out for that feedback and incorporating it. I've got a couple of other questions I was hoping to run through. I think we have a little bit of time. If you were starting all over again, like literally from scratch, I know Katie, like you obviously are kind of in the early stages of your kind of event planning. What one piece of information do you wish you had known about event organization? What surprised you?
And I can jump in because although Wino is a new series, it's definitely been events have been something that I've done for many years. But I think that it took me a while to figure out that as a host, it's just so important to enjoy the experience. I mean, not just because, you know, it's what we do, it's our passion, but I think it's also sort of part of the event brand. It really contributes to the event experience. So I do tend to think about the event day itself. What are the things that need to be in place so that I can feel a bit more relaxed, whether it's on the logistics side, and just in the planning stages, or having more hands on deck to make sure that I can enjoy it, so that it really contributes to the experience for event attendees as well.
That's great. Bobby or Gaia, any kind of anything that surprised you when you started out?
I was surprised of how annoyed guests could be if something didn't go the way they expected, and you could really get some scathing emails the next day. And I used to take it really personally, and I feel like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I realized not to take that sort of thing. Some people are just angry and do not take it personally, do not take it to heart, and always have a gentle feedback response for angry guests.
That's great advice. And for every one unhappy person, there's always 10 really happy people. That's what I always think. You know, they're the ones who kind of stand out.
You just
Bobby,
don't often hear from the happy ones. That's the
I know. If they could just be a bit more public about their praise about the events, that'd be great. I hear you. Bobby, what about you? Anything
I think that's a really good point that's just come out there, you know. And one thing, again, myself, don't take anything personally, but also don't try and please everybody, especially with our events, on the scale of our events, that you can't make everybody that attends your festivals or your events happy. You know, you got to look at the big majority, and if anybody is unhappy or wasn't satisfied, don't hone yourself on just that one bad feedback. You know, look at the positives on everybody else that attended the event and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you. And kind of on a similar vein, I guess, and again, I suppose maybe thinking back to those earlier days, or even like pre-event planning, when you kind of, were being tempted into it. Like, can you remember any standout moments from events that you've run so far, or even events that you've attended, where you felt that there was a real connection with other attendees or with the attendees at your own event? Feel free just to jump in.
I mean, I got sometimes you do an event and you think it was just pretty nondescript and you don't think much about it. And then maybe months later, you'll get a message saying, oh, my baby's about to be born, from the guy I met at your event, and, we're together, and you realize that you are making such an amazing impact on people when they write to you and let you know how their life's changed. So yeah, things like that are really great.
That's a fairly incredible standout moment to have, Gaia. That's amazing. Bobby and Katie, you guys?
for me, it's always got to be the first event. You know, when you've put all that effort, blood, sweat, and tears into developing something, working so many hours and so many weeks and months behind the scenes to actually pulling it together and actually delivering the first one. Yes, everything might not be 100% perfect, but you know, the feeling that you get when you delivered that first event after all that hard work, I don't think you can beat that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I think after the first edition of Wineknow, where it was definitely a shot in the dark in terms of hosting a wine event on that scale, we'd had a last minute venue cancellation and change as well. And just with everything that went into pulling it together, promoting it, filling the room, when our speaker Mags Janjo finished his talk, the energy in the room was just so great, and everyone was buzzing, and it just really validated the concept that we'd had, and it sort of provided the feedback that we needed, that yes, this was something that people had an appetite for, and I think we created a really great experience for everyone in the room.
It's amazing. It's so great to be able to create that experience again, you know, after, you know, what's kind of happened over the last couple of years. I think people are appreciating that live energy feeling even more now. And that's my last question for you is actually the perfect segue, because I wanted to know, like, what is the feeling that you want to create in your attendees? Like, as someone leaves your event, what's the one feeling that makes you think, yes, I did exactly what I set out to do today?
Well,
Gaia?
from our point of view, we want everybody to have a great time. But I think also what we've evolved over since after the pandemic is also we want to make sure people get value for money as well, because if they don't, they won't re-attend. So our team has really been focusing on that over the last probably 18 months to make sure that customers are feeling like they actually got value for money from our event by buying the tickets, spending money at the event, and hopefully, well, that will make people come back again year after year.
Absolutely.
I like my guests to feel that they've been over-delivered. I think there are so many, specifically single events, which are disappointing. So I want them to feel like that was a really nice surprise, that was so good. And they look forward to coming again or going on a date with someone they met.
Yeah.
So I started this event to make wine education more inclusive so that people could enjoy learning about wine as much as I have done. And so to think that attendees would leave feeling energized, but also excited about potentially having a new area of passion in their life, an interest that they can pursue over the long run, that's the kind of feeling that I'm excited to create.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Huge round of applause for our panel, and thank you for taking the time to share your tips and experience. And I think this audience will definitely leave here with a lot of tips for their future events. And thank you so much for our audience as well for joining us here today. Thanks for getting involved in the chat, asking all the questions. It was great to see all those questions roll in. It's given me a lot of ideas for future content. So thank you. Please keep an eye on our blogs. Graham and Kira will be dropping some links into the chat now, including links to all three panelists' event pages. Some of you might want to get tickets to their events in the future. I definitely do. And if you go, enjoy. Please put it on social. Let us know that you went. Thank you all so much again, Katie, Gaia, and Bobby. Really appreciated you being here today and at the pre-record. So I think that is a wrap. We'd very much appreciate your feedback on that note on today's sessions, so we can continue to improve and make these more useful to independent event creators. The survey link is located just beneath the video player. Please just give your feedback as honestly as you like, and we will take it on board. And if you plan on sharing your experience today on social media, please use the hashtag RECONVENE so that we can see all your posts and share the love. And don't forget to follow our organizer profile on the Eventbrite platform, and also follow us on social if you like, across Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok, just to keep up with what we're up to and to keep the conversation going. We're at Eventbrite on each one. Thanks again for joining today. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And we'll see you again soon at our next RECONVENE session. See ya.